for warwear.com.
Okay, how are you today? How is everyone? My name is Praise for Wowe, and I'm super excited to be here today, even though the circumstances is not something anybody wants to be in. But I am glad I'm able to do this video. I have put it off. I've searched my conscience to know if it was the right time or the right thing to do at this point in time. So I decided finally to have this video done. Now, my heart goes out to the people who are mourning right now, especially Sylvester's parents. I want you to know that there is nobody, no therapy, no grief therapy can actually bring you healing at this point in time. But you need to learn to live every day as it comes, hoping that you will gain clarity and you will find healing at some point in time. So the thing that happened was needless, it was avoidable and preventable. So I'm going to break this into three parts. I'll talk about the nation, I'll talk about the school, then I'll talk about the parents. Because consistently, when news like this breaks, everybody gets into frenzy. People begin to chase clout in some instances. People that normally would not speak, everybody will come and speak up. And I know you're all concerned. And I also know that there are those who are not really concerned, but they're joining the bandwagon. There is nothing wrong with that. However, what happens this time next week? What happens in 3 weeks' time? What happens exactly a month from now? If my memory serves me right, if I understand the pattern of the country, after about 1 month or 2 months, nobody talks about this again until the next news breaks, because this is not the first time this is happening. It has been a reoccurrence across our country. I'll tell you, I started writing about cultism in our schools, secondary schools. Started writing about that, I think, about 7 years ago. Started writing about rape in our boarding houses about 11 years ago. I wrote about it. It was there in the public domain. I wrote to many of the schools. I did not just write, because for every problem we spotted, we will always create innovation. We created intervention that can help. We send proposals to all the schools. We send letters to almost all the top schools in Lagos and outside of Lagos. Very few responded. We engaged some of the people that responded. We try to put systems in place, and God bless my brother Taiwo Akinlami for the amazing job we've done together over the years. We try to put systems in place, but usually there's always sabotage, right? And at the end of the day, you realize that many of the schools are not interested. But I'm not going to blame the school for starters. I want to talk about the state of the nation. The first question we should be asking is, what happened to our public schools? Because there would never have been private schools without the public schools being totally destroyed. When I was growing up, I went to public school. Many of you went to public school. If you're in my generation, if you're 40 and above, you went to public schools. Our public schools were not totally bad. Of course, we had bullies in those public schools, but somehow the systems were a bit effective, even though, if we have to be very honest, there were still people who were sodomized. There were people who were raped. There were people, all kinds of things happened. There were people who were beaten black and blue by some wicked seniors. And many of those people kept quiet. As a matter of fact, when we talk about the generation of LGBT across Nigeria, many people became one while in boys' hostel. And that includes people who became lesbians as well. These are things that we don't like to talk about. But if we begin to pretend that bullying started with private schools, will be all lying to ourselves. It didn't start with a private school. It's always been. But where did it come from? We have to look at the Nigerian state from the military era. It was a bullying season in the state of a nation, where you did things not because you really wanted to do it, but because the fear of war against indiscipline was the beginning of wisdom for you. So we had situations where the military beat people, they beat people black and blue. People were bullied and they couldn't speak their truth. That was where it started from. Are people bullied by the society? they're going to become teachers, they're going to become house mistresses, they're going to become leaders, right? And so you see bullying all across our nation. If we isolate Dowen College and make it about Dowen College, we won't be doing justice to this matter. Government bullies people. Everyone who seems to be, a bit of on the leadership position, we try to bully the people who are vulnerable. And by the time those ones get into power, they bully the next generation. It's always been like that. So we need to also understand that the nation itself is a product of families. And that takes me to family systems. What kind of family systems do we run? Let's check our home. Don't husbands bully their wives? Don't wives bully their children? As a matter of fact, there was a research work that was done in the year 1713 when they're trying to dimension who we are as a people. And one of the things they said was the fact that we are always mean to that the fathers are always like authoritarian leaders, and in conjunction with the wives, they are always mean to their children. That is documented. So if you check an average home today, how many of us bully our husbands, bully our wives, and how many of us bully our children? Because if you send the child to school and the child suddenly becomes someone who cannot confide in you or stand up for himself or report, the problem may not have started from the school. The problem could have started from the home. So our parenting charter in Africa, we need to begin to review, because many of us have bullied our children in our quest to make them obey us. We have bullied them to that state where they can no longer speak their mind. And you see, when a child's ferocious curiosity is already compromised, by the time the child gets to school, is already in a state of coma. The seniors and the teachers in there are going to finish the work. So you cannot totally isolate the home from the school and blame the school for what is happening. I mean, I'm in the US right now, and I can tell you in the last 2 weeks, I've spoken to 9 parents who were planning to send their children back to Nigeria. What was the problem? They believe that their children are becoming wayward, and they believe that the solution is to send the children back to boarding houses in Nigeria, because in their mind, they said they were disciplined in the boarding houses. So they are sending their children to be disciplined by the boarding houses. Now these children are already badly behaved. Some of them are already smoking marijuana. They are assuming that a miracle is going to magically happen by sending the children to Nigeria. They are going to be well. If you check many of the children in some of the fee-paying schools who are creating trouble, you would realize that maybe they follow that same pattern of being expelled from a particular school, being expelled from abroad, or their parents, because they don't want to be disgraced, they send them back home, and before you know it, they continue the behavior. But they don't just continue the behavior, they recruit other people. And so you find a situation where we're not taking responsibilities as parents, because if you don't know how to parent, then you need to seek knowledge, right? I know many of us pray, and that's why I always say that, you see, prayer, words is action. I mean, it's a prayer, but our action is also prayer. There is no prayer you pray with words of mouth without the requisite knowledge. For raising your child, there is nothing that is going to happen. Your child may still turn out badly. So we need to begin to ask ourselves to say, are we adequately equipped to raise children, or we are bullying children? Because many of us were traumatized children. We grew up to become traumatized adults or dysfunctional adults, and now we are raising children, traumatizing the children. When was the last time you spanked a child, yelled at a 4-year-old for spilling water? Spilling water at the age of 4, is it bad behavior or expected behavior? But you bullied the child for being the child because he couldn't speak back at you. Now you bully the child, then you send the child off to secondary school, forgetting the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is that you never send your child to a boarding house until your child has been properly groomed as an ambassador of your family values. If you have not tested around, troubleshoot, and discover and confirm that your child is totally molded in the values of your family, there is no point sending your child to the boarding house. And the question is, why do we send children to boarding house? Right? If you're sending your children to boarding house because you are very clear about what you want your child to master, it's a ball game. It's a different ball game mentality. Many people are sending children to boarding houses simply because the children have become a distraction. The children are disturbing them, or they don't have time for their children. The question is, why did you give back to a child that you won't have time for? I understand that many of you are genuinely busy, but you see, you will always find time for what is most important to you. If you can't find time for your child, most likely your child is not important to you. And that is what you find consistently. I lived in the same Nigeria. I raised my children in their formative years in Nigeria. And I can tell you, I took them to school every morning. I picked them every afternoon because whatever will stand within the time I have to spend with my children, I have to go. Because moments is what you always have to live with your children. And the few times I couldn't, I already built a community of parents like me. We call it our small village. They can take my children, they can even discipline them where they need to be disciplined because we share similar values. See, the bigger challenge is when we were growing up, we were community children. Now we are all building our children, and you dare not correct some people's children, they're going to fight you. And that is what we have taken to the schools. If you ask an average parent, why are you sending your child to this school? They can't tell you. They'll just tell you, oh, that my friend is going to that school. Or, that school is expensive. I hear that the son of governors and the rest of them go there. So I want my child to be close to the children of governors so that maybe they can do things together later. So that in itself is an abuse. So a child is abused because we have not dimensioned his potential before we send him to a school. We are sending him to a school for association's sake. A child whose esteem is already messed up, or a child who has not mastered himself, we ship him off simply because we want to go to very expensive school where the children of the celebrities, the children of the leaders in Nigeria, the politicians go. There is nothing wrong with that. But does your child need to really go to that school? Because we keep pretending that is a school that will determine who your child becomes. That is a different ball game and a discussion for another day. So how do you raise your child as a parent? If you don't understand how to raise a child, you don't know it. You need to get help. And getting help means you need to admit that you don't know and get enough knowledge. I mean, we have a lot of resources over time because what I've done in the last 18 years of my life in Nigeria is to generate content, generate intervention, create interventions upon interventions that can prevent what we are all talking about today. But parents will turn, they will turn their eyes away because their priorities are actually wrong. Now, the last thing I began to do before I left Nigeria was to begin to help schools reparent the parents. Because when the parents themselves are dysfunctional, how do they raise a functional child? So there were a few schools that I worked with to create an entry program for every parent sending their children to the school. Because when you don't understand parenting, you will mess up a child. So many of us as parents need to go back home and begin to ask ourselves, do we know about parenting? Do we understand? Because I can almost tell you don't know about parenting by the decisions you're taking and by the questions you are asking your children. And you can find that, at play in many of the cases we're talking about. Now, let me come to the school. A whole lot of schools do not know that a school is a system. If you send a child to Boko Haram for 6 years, guaranteed the children are going to become terrorists. If parents give their children to you for 6 years, who are those children going to become? Many schools cannot tell. Let me tell you, let me shock you. It will interest you to know that an average school does not have a proper vision. And the Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. If you want to know whether your child's school has a vision, don't ask the owner of the school because it could have been given a document that is pasted on the wall. Go to your child's school, ask their gatemen, ask the drivers, ask the cleaners, maybe ask the house mistress and house masters. If they can't tell you the vision of the school, then the school has no vision. And if they can't tell you the vision, then it means the structure is wrong somewhere. A system is not emotional. Many of our schools are very emotional. And that's why if the son of a governor gets into a school, automatically the son of that governor goes above the law, except the governor himself now becomes someone who is a hands-on parent who will insist that don't give him preferential treatment. If the son of the powerful gets into a school, the school is odd that the son of a celebrity has come to our school. In fact, they flaunt it as an advertisement material. How do we measure the effectiveness of a school? Is it by ambience? That's what parents are looking for. AC classes, ballet, extracurricular, right? Ability to have straight A's. Your child can have straight A's from a school, but your child can also have a distinction in pornography, which the report card never captures. Your child could have been bullied. In fact, your child could have become, his sexual orientation could have changed, and the report card will not capture. Because as at 11 years ago, I started reporting that children are being sodomized in many schools in a concept called Fokarama. I wrote about it, talked about it. Very few schools paid attention. Now, many of the things coming out is small compared to what is really happening, because it doesn't look good on many schools. They are quick to expel a child that they have found, guilty of a particular crime. And what I always say to schools is, don't just expel a child. Can you look into around that school? Because you are expelling the child, that could have been a culture within the school. There are so many cultures that is going on that the school owners or the custodians of the school are not aware of. That's why when the principal of Dowen begins to say that there can be cultism in their school because there are no bushes, that is a man who is totally cut off, or that's a person who is totally cut off from the reality of our days and time, because you don't need bush for cultism to hold. By the time that person makes that statement, it should make you afraid to begin to ask questions, to say, who are the people we are leaving our children with? In fairness to our private schools, they have really tried. Without the private schools, I don't know the state of education, what it would have been in Nigeria. They bailed us out because the government failed with public schools. The public school system in every nation of the world is solid, except in our country and maybe other African countries. That the moment you destroy the public system, you will leave your system at the arms of subjective people, because as at the last time I checked, there is no standardization, and so there are no parameters. Everyone is doing whatever they like. The same way religion is, where I can just dream right now and go and set up a church. Many people can just dream and go and set up a school, right? They will just go to fulfill everything the government requires. But who is monitoring? Who is measuring? Before a school can run a boarding house, are we doing the proper checks? Who are the counselors in many of our schools? These are fundamental questions and nobody's asking. As at the last time I checked, the graduates of guidance and counseling will struggle to run modern day therapy or modern day intervention, because counseling is not advisory. What we have in many schools are advisors, because when the chips are down, when you see a bully, what is the intervention for a bully? There are interventions for bullies. I have worked with bullies. I have broken the back of bullies consistently in deploying therapy, right? But when you have situations where some schools don't even have a counselor, they don't have a single psychologist, but your child is there, and you are not asking questions. When you go for PTA meeting, what questions are you asking, right? And so these are critical issues. Every school my children have attended, I've always asked, what is the child protection system here? I want to see the policy, but I'm not just going to read the policy. I'm going to benchmark the policy against the system on ground, and I'm going to troubleshoot the system. So when they call PTA meeting, parents don't show up, right? In fact, there are schools that don't have PTA meeting. I moved my child away from a school because they insisted that a particular denominational member is the person that they are the only people who are eligible to become ESCOs in that school. And I'm like, we are all paying school fees, but you have turned a school into a church. And I moved my child out of school. And a few parents also moved their children out of the school. Because you see, the power of the consumer is the capacity to dictate what the producers should produce. But the moment parents are helpless on a service you are paying a school to render, then that is game over. A lot of us don't know the damage being done to our children when we keep quiet, when we should actually open our mouth. See, I am not afraid to move my children consistently from any school, and I've done that over time. However, I am worried about the future of our children. Everybody's wondering, when did cultism get into school? Cultism did not start recently. It's always been there. It may not take the shape of cultism, but the moment you have a class in some schools that call themselves the big boys of this school, right? And they bully the younger, that's already a cult. They don't need to initiate and put blood and drink blood for them to become cult. These things have been in our school since forever. What are we doing about these things? The moment a child takes on the personality of the parent, and grows above a school system, that's the end of that school. And that is the situation of many of our schools, where we don't know how to discipline children. Schools don't know what to do. A child does something that is wrong. Suspension is all we know. Beyond suspension, we are assuming that by the time he's suspended, he comes back sane. No. What are your counselors doing? What are your your psychologists doing? Nothing. And that is what has led us to where we are. Everything is in shambles as we talk. So don't zone in on Dowen College. Check every other school. There are very, very few schools who have built a robust system where a child is adequately protected. And it's just not about boarding houses. Even day students, right? There are schools where they smoke ganja. There are schools where everybody's touching everybody in the class. There are schools where the children tamper with CCTV. All kinds of stories over the years. What do we need to begin to do? My heart goes again to Sylvester's parents, but I'm hoping this will make all of us to begin to ask the right questions. This will make government to come out to explain to us what happened to our public schools and what is their plan to recover the public schools and standardize the public school. It's a time for the Ministry of Education in Nigeria, our what's it called? The Minister for Education, I don't even know what his name is, right? To come out and tell us what is the educational direction of Nigeria, what is the vision of the educational system in Nigeria, what is the educational policy? Can we read it? It's that time that we need to come out and begin to ask the right question. In every state, can they show us what the plan is for our precious children? Now, for the private schools, it's time for the quality control units of every state to begin to go and show us the parameters to begin to check by which we can measure the private schools. It needs to be clear. It cannot be from school to school. Every school is doing whatever they like, as if it's a religious organization we're running. It's high time for everyone to begin to ask the right questions and for us to be willing to do what is right. Let me tell you this. In every nation of the world with standard educational system, there are about 2 or 3 questions they ask before any school is open, before any educational curriculum is drafted. Number 1, who do we want our citizens to become? Number 2, how do we want them to think? Then 3, what do we need to do to answer the first 2 questions? Did Nigeria ask this question before they created an educational system? What system do we actually run? Right? Until we answer these 2 questions and now put the right people at the helms of affairs who understand what education is all about and who are willing to damn every consequence to ensure that nobody is above the law and that no school is above the law, then this will just be all noise. We will go back to our homes till another case breaks tomorrow. This is not rocket science. Trust me, it's not rocket science. I have created systems upon systems upon systems for schools, for different organizations, so I know exactly how these things work. Oftentimes, it breaks my heart when we send proposals to school and they tell us, oh, you want to make money of us? But the same school don't mind bringing a rap star for 4 million naira for end of the year meeting. But when it's time to pay subject matter specialists, you know what they do? We don't have money. I wrote about it yesterday of how a school in Port Harcourt, said, oh, Praise, we can't have you in our school because you always call yourself a savior. So a school that is supposed to be academic in nature, scientific, was using a religious brain to process a subject matter expert that should help their children, right? And I told them, you know what? I don't even want to work with you. Guys, you need to do better, starting from your home. Don't make this an isolated event. Everybody's energy is towards Dowen College. Dowen is just a minor case. There are bigger fries. Let's start from our home. If your children will pick a bully or give a definition of a bully, won't they call your name as a father? Won't they call your name as a mother? Because you think you have power, you beat them, you hound them, you do all kinds of things, and they can't even express their minds, right? As a people, as citizens of Nigeria, if we have to describe our government, would we describe them as servant leaders or would describe them as bullies? And even when we describe them, do they listen? And the schools, can we begin to do what is right and insist on what is right? Can we go for PTA meeting, insist on the standard we want, and begin to ask the right questions? Until we do this, nothing is going to change. Trust me, my heart goes to Sylvester parent. It should never have happened. And my heart goes to every parent whose children have been bullied across our schools. It didn't start today. Many of us were victims of bullying in our generation. If your child is bullied, go to school. Stand against the school. If they want to bury it, don't allow it. And for schools who tell children not to tell their parents what is happening, because there are schools like that, I think you need to stop. Because it's a commitment that you have given to parents when you collect school fees, that you protect their children. And you cannot mess up the esteem of these children. See, these are the three dimensions I think we need to look at this. And if we begin to ask the right questions, I think we'll begin to find solutions. Let's not make this be another case that will go away after 3 months and we'll pick another case and everybody moves on with their life till the next news break. There's a whole lot we can do. You go back to your home, do what is right, apologize to your children if you have been their bully, go to your children's school, ask the right question. You know you can do it tomorrow. Go there, ask the gate man, what is the vision of this school? Ask the driver that they asked to come and pick your child, what's the vision of this school you are working in? Ask the cleaners, what's the vision of the school? Ask some of the teachers, what's the vision of the school? And hear what they are saying. You will be shocked that many people have access to your children who have no business having access to your children. And if you find out that the school has fallen short of what I've asked you to do, escalate, talk to other parents, constitute a PTA meeting, and begin to demand that your school gets, maybe consultants or get subject matter experts who can help them position a system that is not emotional, that's not dependent on the emotion of the owner of the school or some guy from Abuja or some political leader or some celebrities. No, a school must be a school. It's a system. And that's why it's an educational system that is supposed to produce an outcome. And that outcome must be predictable even from the start of the school. I hope this has helped someone out there. You go ahead, ask this question from your child's school and let me know what you found out. You can reach me on Facebook or on Instagram. And by the way, I didn't know this was going to happen. We've already launched a virtual behavioral transformational platform. It's called Ready for Life. It's for parents in Nigeria and parents in diaspora, different websites and different content, depending on where you are, in the world. You can reach me or slide into my DM on any of the media platform. I'll tell you the website. What we're doing is to partner with parents to groom their children to become responsible in the sexualized world. That's what we have chosen to do as a people. An entire curriculum, 3 semesters in a year from ages 8 to age 18. But that is just what we are doing. What you are paying for a school, go to that school and ask the right question and let me know what they're saying. There's a whole lot that we can do. Don't go and fight, just have a conversation, because many of the school owners actually need help as well. And I think we can all come together and do what is right over this matter so that we don't wake up tomorrow and realize that another child has been hacked to death. God bless Nigeria. God bless every parent. And may God grant the parents of Sylvester the fortitude to bear this loss. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.